While we're talking about the benefits of living in the mountains and in the rural areas, to me the most wonderful blessing that you can experience is the joy of being a part of winning a precious soul to Christ. Isn't that what life is all about, friends? You know, there are numerous ways that you can witness from the country, the rural areas. I'll name just a couple right now. One is to be a part of a bulk mailing of truth-filled books to your region or to other regions of the country. Another way of witnessing would be to air prophecy seminars on radio and TV stations, or to use a micro FM broadcaster to broadcast to your immediate area. These are just a few of the possibilities out there. But to me, the most effective way of witnessing, friends, is one-on-one. You know, we're told to leave the cities, and we're also told to go back into the cities and work them from outposts. Not to live in the cities, but to visit them as Enoch did. Why don't we read the method that Enoch used in witnessing? He did not make his abode with the wicked. He did not locate in Sodom, thinking to save Sodom. He placed himself and his family where the atmosphere would be as pure as possible. Then at times he went forth to the inhabitants of the world with his God-given message. Every visit he made to the world was painful to him. He saw and understood something of the leprosy of sin. After proclaiming his message, he always took back with him to his place of retirement some who had received the warning. Some of these became overcomers and died before the flood came. Also, you'll want to reach the people in the area that you move to. I believe that many people living in rural locations may be even more aware than others that we are rapidly losing our freedoms and liberty, and that end-time events are happening, but they don't quite understand what it means. They seem to live life at a slower pace, and therefore can be more approachable and more receptive. Sometimes it only takes one key word to start up a spiritual conversation. It's a good idea to keep a variety of spiritual books in your car for times such as these. But to some people, the idea of witnessing one-to-one can be uncomfortable and even frightening, and I know that feeling. Some feel they don't know how or what to say. Well, who was the greatest witness this world has ever known? John 7:46 tells what the officers sent by the priests and rulers to arrest Jesus said when they returned without him. They reported, "Never man spake like this man." And the spirit of prophecy amplifies this by saying, "Never man spake like this man because never man lived like this man." Friends, I believe this is the key to real witnessing. If we want to speak like Jesus, we have to live like Jesus. I ask you, which location would be the most conducive to living like Jesus lived? The cities and the suburbs with all the tempting enticements and noise and confusion, or the peaceful, quiet, beautiful countryside and mountains? You know, we're told that Moses went into the wilderness and stayed 40 years, during which time he put away self, and that made room so that he could have the presence of God with him. Let me offer a suggestion. I'm offering it to you because of what it has been doing for me. In the mornings, when we first wake up, my wife and I usually read together aloud in the inspired writings. It's the most inspiring and exhilarating way to start our day. And right now, we're reading through the set of inspired books called Testimonies for the Church. What a tremendous blessing we're getting from these, friends. They're helping me to understand the daily details about how to live like Jesus lived. I highly recommend reading or rereading these books, along with the Conflict of the Ages series and, of course, the Bible, now and after you relocate. As you read God's Word in the pure atmosphere of the country or the mountains with a humble and open heart, I guarantee you'll become more aware of the great controversy that is raging around us. And before you know it, you'll have plenty to share with others for the times we live in. One final thought. Watch carefully for God's providences as you decide how to set up your homestead. And remember, God's providences will never go against His written word, friends. Don't confuse Satan's disguises with God's providences. Often when folks are convicted to obey God's instructions and warnings, and they're about to make a change, Satan may present his providences. Don't be surprised if a sudden job offer or promotion or other enticement comes along right as you're attempting to go forward. We face this, and so have others. Here are 2 references you can read to find out how to tell the difference between the two. We're going to end this segment with a wonderful promise you can claim as you choose which route to take in your move. We've been talking about following God's instructions to gain the enormous blessings now that He has in store for us, and also to get ready for the times ahead. I imagine most of you remember the Old Testament story about good King Asa. It's found in 2 Chronicles 14. And during King Asa's reign, the Bible says that for 10 years there was quiet. Wouldn't that be nice to have 10 years of peace? During King Asa's reign, he obeyed God by destroying the signs of idolatry, and also he obeyed God by commanding Judah to seek and obey Him, and also to fear and reverence Him. Isn't that what it's all about, friends? To reverence and fear God. Asa did something else during his reign. He built fenced cities with towers and gates and iron bars. He also trained mighty men of valor. It's about 580,000 of them. That's a large army. After a while, the Ethiopians came from Egypt to attack King Asa's kingdom. Was King Asa terrified? Let's go to the Spirit of Prophecy and see what Ellen White had to say. I'll be reading from Prophets and Kings, page 110 and 111. I'll be reading excerpts. The faith of Asa was put to a severe test when Zerah the Ethiopian, with a host of 1,300 chariots, invaded his kingdom. In this crisis, Asa did not put his trust in the fenced cities in Judah that he had built with walls and towers, gates and bars, nor in the mighty men of valor in his carefully trained army. The king's trust was in Jehovah of hosts. Setting his forces in battle array, he sought the help of God. From every human viewpoint, the vast host from Egypt would sweep everything before it. But in time of peace, Asa had not been giving himself to amusement and pleasure. He had been preparing for an emergency. He had an army trained for conflict. He had endeavored to lead his people to make their peace with God. And now, although his forces were fewer in number than the enemy, his faith in the one whom he had made his trust did not weaken. Having sought the Lord in the days of prosperity, the king could now rely on Him in the day of adversity. And so now, in this time of Earth's history, we're given the opportunity to prepare in a time of relative peace, friends, compared to what's about to happen. Asa had prepared his country spiritually and physically. He had done his part. He had done what he was able to do. So when the crisis came, he had peace of mind that he could rely on God. Over and over, we are told we must first do all we can, then God will do the rest. That's the peace of mind that I want, folks. Don't you? My mind goes back to the first disaster that happened after my family and I left the city and moved to the mountains. I remember calling some friends, and the first thing they asked me was, "Did you hear about the World Trade Center towers coming down?" Well, I hadn't, and it was very shocking to me. But you know, throughout that day, I thought a lot. And I was so thankful for the warnings that God has given us. I was thankful that He helped us move from the city to the mountains, where there's an abundance of water, where there is enough workable land to grow a garden for the times when we can't buy or sell, where there's an ample supply of firewood to keep us warm in the winter, and most of all, where we have our Bibles and our Spirit of Prophecy books to get us through the coming crisis. Finally, I'd like to wrap all this up by saying, friends, you'll never, ever regret following God's warnings. I'm here to tell you that every step that you take, every step that you go forward, God will bring an increase in freedom, liberty, and spiritual blessings to you. And the devil doesn't like it. He'll do what he can to stop you from leaving the cities to receiving these blessings. Let me share just a few examples of the spiritual blessings I and my family have received. When we moved to the mountains, we experienced a detoxification from the world that I didn't know was possible. Our minds have become more clear. The Bible has taken on new meanings. I've enjoyed the Bible since we've moved more than ever. We're closer to nature. And friends, when you're closer to nature, you're closer to God. There is actually a peace that passeth all understanding. I'm learning to trust more in God, to depend on God now before every earthly support is cut off. Friends, it's a real exercise in faith. God will send you adversity. He will allow adversity to happen. Your faith will be exercised, and with His strength, you overcome and your faith increases, and then it happens again, and it happens again, and you increase in faith, and then you'll be more ready for the coming conflicts. It's like a weightlifter working out. He doesn't just sit around and not get ready for the contest. He works out and exercises his muscles. That's what we're to do with faith. And friends, when you move to the mountains, you'll have that faith exercised and increased, and a tremendous blessing will follow. Many times we have told each other how thankful we are that we have actually made the move. Sometimes I guess it wasn't long after we moved, we just would look at each other and couldn't believe that we had actually done it. That we weren't living in the city. That we didn't have to worry about a crisis happening and us getting trapped in the city. Finally, as you choose to obey God and go forward, you will be following in the path of three very famous men. That would be Moses, Elijah, and Enoch. Now, what did these three men have in common? They spent large amounts of time in the wilderness and in the mountains. And what happened to these men? I think you know the answer. They were all three taken to heaven. Friends, may God bless you as you go forward and embark on your journey.